Jai Ho, my dear students. I am Ratnakar Suryavanshi from SK Public School. See, in the last class we have learnt about old and new terminologies, right? I mean how the terms, how the meanings of the terms have been changed in the last 1000 years of history or past. About those we have already learnt in the previous class. Today we will learn about another topic in the lesson, tracing changes through 1000 years. In which lesson? In the lesson called tracing changes through 1000 years. In this we will start today the main third topic, that is historians and their sources. Which one? Historians and their sources. Historians and their sources. So here we learn what are the sources used by historians to build, to write the history, to read the history of past about 1000 years. Then which was that 1000 years, about that also we will see. See, commonly as we all know that historians use different sources to learn the past. They used various variety of sources, different sources have been used by the historians to learn about past. And see, the sources they used, it was depending on the period of their study as well as on the nature of their study and on the base or on the system of their investigation. I mean the study of past by the historians, it was dependent on the nature of their study, on the nature of their study. I mean what type of study they did, what was the shape, what was the nature of that study, and then investigation. What? Investigation. So on these basis, what happened? The sources used by the historians are very different, and those different sources are also dependent upon the period of the study of the historians' period as well as the nature of the study and the investigation, or the nature of their investigation. We can take directly the nature of their investigation and the period of their study. Both 2 points. Nature of their investigation and the period. Right? So these both are dependent on the sources used by the historians in the last or in the past 1000 years. See, for example, one example also we can take here. Already you might have learned about the Guptas in in the previous class. You might have learned about whom? About the Guptas, right? So as you all know that Gupta's famous ruler was Harshavardhana. Who was that? As I said you that Harshavardhana, right? Harshavardhana, he was the famous or an important ruler of the Gupta, right? Already you might be learned a bit about the Guptas also. Say, in this book, I mean in whole history section of the class 7, it is all about the period. It is all about the period called 700 to 1750 Common Era. I mean almost roughly about the history of 1000 years. Roughly about the period of 1000 years we learn in the class 7 whole history section. I feel you understand this. And see, even we can understand that the sources used in this 1000 years of period, there is some continuity. I mean the sources which are used in the 1000 years of period to write or to read the history of past, in that the sources which were used, in those sources we can see some continuity also. Continuity can be seen in the sources used by the historians for the study of this period. And see, they still rely, historians still believe on coins, they believe about coins, inscriptions, manuscripts, architecture, as well as about textual records for information. Historians used various sources, as you have already known about these. coins were used in manuscripts as well as architectures. Architecture was also used, even textual records are also used for various information purposes by the historians to study the last 1000 years of history. But see, there is also some considerable discontinuity also. Continuity we got it, but even there is a bit considerably there is a discontinuity also. Then what was the discontinuity? See, for example, the number and variety of textual records increased dramatically during this period. I mean, during this period, the number of textual records and the variety of those textual records have been increased dramatically, suddenly increased in this period. And see, they slowly, those all the increased and variety of textual documents displaced the available information. Previously available informations were displaced by the newly arrived informations. For example, just we can come to know that manuscripts. What? Manuscripts. Manuscripts have been displaced by papers. In this period, what happens? See, paper gradually became cheaper and more widely available. Paper became gradually available, that too cheap and more available. It became cheap and more widely available to the people. Because of this, manuscripts were displaced by this paper. And see, people used it to write holy text. I mean, papers were used to write holy text. Various textbooks, holy books were written. To write holy books also paper was used. Even chronicles of rulers, I mean court historians, they used to write the history of their king, of their majesty. They too used paper, as well as letters and teachings of the saints were also written in the papers, as well as petitions, I mean complaints, as well as judicial records. About judicial records, I mean all the records which are related to the justice, all those are also, or legalities, all those are also written in the paper, as well as various registers, registers of accounts also written in the paper, as well as the tax informations or the register about the taxes were also written in the paper, on the paper. In this type, paper become widely acceptable, widely cheaper and more widely available in this period. And say, here even we can understand that there was no printing press. During this time, there was no printing press. So, scribes were used. Scribes copied the manuscripts by handwriting. It means by hand only they copied what? The writings or the documents. They copied by hand. Who copied? Manuscripts. Manuscripts means, as you all know, that the people who have good and beautiful systematic handwriting, those are called as manuscripts. So, what happens here? Manuscripts. All those manuscripts were, what happened here? Manuscripts means, I would like to clarify once again that manuscripts means handwritten documents. Handwritten documents are called as manuscripts, obviously. So, to copy those manuscripts, scribes were appointed. Scribes means, I would like to clarify this, scribes means the people who copy the text. Those are called as scribes. So, scribes were appointed to copy the manuscripts. But obviously you know that what was the problem here, as there was no printing press or printing machine. The problem was when you copy down the homework of your friend, you will come to know that how tough it is, correct? No? Because sometimes you can't understand the handwriting of your friend, and sometimes you may be forced to guess the meaning, guess the spelling of that particular word. Sometimes it happens, right? What is written about that, you may be forced to guess also. So, because of this, what will happen? What would happen? Because of this, in the homeworks, we can get the huge differences. Significant differences we can see in the homeworks. And say, this is what the problem here. While While when scribes were copying notes, sometimes they were forced to guess what is written in the manuscripts. Because of this, huge difference arrived in those copied texts. And as scribes copied manuscripts, they also introduced small changes in the text. For example, about the words they have brought changes, even about the sentences also they have brought various changes. And these small differences, all the small differences grew over centuries of copying until manuscript of the same text became substantially different from one another. Because of the scribes, because of copying those, and because of bringing some changes in the words and sentences which grew continually, those brought a huge differences in the text. And see, because of this, what happened? Same text became completely different from one another. Completely became different from one another. And there is a serious problem, because even till today there is a serious problem that we get rarely the original text or the original manuscript of the author today. Today it is a serious problem, or it is a major thing, that we get rarely we get the original copy or the original manuscript of the author. So that's why historians have to study, they have to read various versions of the same text, various versions they have to read, then they have to guess what had been originally written by the original author. So this is one major problem. See, on occasion, just even we can take one more example here. See, on occasion, authors revised their chronicles also. I mean, those who lived in the court historians, those who lived in under the various kings, they written chronicles, and they have changed those chronicles also. I mean, they had written chronicles at different times. For example, in 14th century, a chronicler called Ziauddin Barni was that. Ziauddin Barni also had written a chronicle, and when it was written, see, in 1356, Ziauddin Barni had written a copy. Had written a chronicle. And after 2 years, Ziauddin Barni had written another chronicle. Another version of chronicle had been written after 2 years. Both the chronicles are different from each other. And our historians did not know the existence of first version. Until the 1960s. Until the 1960s, our historians did not know that there was a first version of the Chronicle of Ziauddin Barni, a 14th century chronicle. So it remained lost in large library collections. It was remained lost only in large library collections. So this is what about historians and their sources, which means various sources are used, but the sources used are different from period to period. And because of the scribes, what happened, meanings of the word sentences are also changed while copying. Why? Because they were forced to guess what was written in that original book. Because of that, historians faced the problem to write what was there in the original book or original text. So this is what we call historians and their sources. And in the next class, we will take up another topic of the same lesson, facing changes through 1,000 years. Now we want 1 point, 1,000 years. Which was that 1,000 years? Roughly 700 Common Era to 1750 Common Era. About this we will learn. And the next topic is new social and political groups. New social and political groups. About this We will study in the next class. Thank you. Jai Hind.